Well, greetings, everyone. I'm very, very pleased to have somebody who responded to our request on my channel for people who had experienced homeschooling. And fortunately, somebody's come, well, a number of people have come forward, but one in particular, which attracted my attention, Nicola from the East Riding of Yorkshire, and she's going to tell us about her background. And I'm very pleased about that because I want to get across the message to everybody exactly how it works and how practical it can be, and you don't have to worry about attempting it. And I've got lots of friends who are doing it now because there's no sometimes it just isn't possible to send your child to a state school because it's just too ghastly, it's too dreadful. And it's impossible to send your child, even if you're a professional man in the City of London these days, if you've got two children, to a public school, because the fees are absolutely extortionate. So that's a closed option, and the government's vindictive VAT on private school fees, which is just vindictive, has cut a lot of people off from that avenue as well. Not incidentally that I think you get much of a better education these days at a public school, because they all sing off the same hymn sheet. They all teach bogus science, bogus everything else, bogus history, just in order to tick the boxes for their A levels. But I'm going to now hand over to Nicola, who's going to give us a little bit of her background, her personal background, and she is going to tell us her journey with her daughter and how it's gone for her. With, I have to say, not preempting anything, with some success. So Nicola, over to you. Tell us about yourself and tell us about your daughter.
Hi, Godfrey. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, just a background. I'm just a normal mum. Nothing exciting. Pretty average academically, you know. B, Cs. I got a D in maths. I actually sat my maths GCSE 4 times and just kept getting that D. Although, interestingly, it's not affected me at all in daily life. But yeah, did the whole school thing, job thing, bought a little house, met a fella, got married, had a couple of kids. We decided that we had a choice really to make. We could have left the little house that we had, which was bought for next to nothing, really, really cheap, and go and work full time, the pair of us, and get the detached on the new estate or whatever, you know. Or I could stay at home and just be a mum, which is what I really wanted to do. My husband was really supportive. I think he's quite old-fashioned and quite liked that, you know, that idea of somebody being at home. So that's what we did. We had to give up, obviously. We had it was only a tiny little terrace, 2 up, 2 down, front door on the street sort of thing. But a great neighbourhood, down to earth, working people loved it. My people, from when I was brought up as a kid, cup of sugar people, you know. But I was all for the school thing. I was all for the school thing. So for the first 3 years before they sort of start nursery, I had them at home, and I saw myself as their first teacher. And anyone can do that when they're little. It's singing songs and reading lots of books, lots of talking, lots of explaining. You know, do you want the red t-shirt or the yellow t-shirt? Look at the shape of that. Where do the eggs come from? Should we go see the cows? Let's go to the park. Look at that insect. There's just so much that you can teach little preschoolers. And I did all that, and I sent her to school age 3, ready to learn, loved learning, loved to read, learning how to read, learning her letters, colours, numbers, shapes, all sorts. I told her it was going to be fantastic. You're going to meet lots of new friends. You're going to learn lots of new things. Your teacher's going to be experts. And that's just not how it was. And all the educational light went out, you know. And they were totally obsessed with maths and English every morning, maths and English. And then all the other wonderful things that we can learn about, you know, history, art, music, dance, PE, geography, loads of things. It was all crammed into this sort of probably 10 hours a week, 2 hours every afternoon. My daughter loves science. She was born a scientist. She nosy, wanted to know everything, and I indulged her. They just didn't do enough at school. She felt she just just lost the spark, you know. And when she was 7, it was the summer holidays, and she just said, "Will you do my lessons?" So I just took a deep breath and said, "Yeah, let's go for it." So like we all do, if you don't plan to home educate, most home educators that sort of get thrown into it, I thought I'm going to have to do national curriculum. I was terrified. That's all I knew. I was obviously indoctrinated to think that that's how children learn. School had informed me that she was secure. You know, they graded them emerging, secure, and exceeding or something. She was secure, so I thought, great, I'll go get the national curriculum books. We'll get a timetable set up. I laugh now. We all do it. And let's go for it. But it was an absolute disaster. The national curriculum is just so boring, lacking in depth. It's not linked to anything. It doesn't make sense. And some of the stuff they was expecting her to learn that it was really unnecessary. I mean, for example, we're doing this English, and they wanted to learn, age 7, about the structure of sentences, clauses, and all this. For goodness sake, just let them read and just. And it totally stressed her out. And this little girl that I'd taught to love to read, it had been ruined, Godfrey. You know what they do in school? They have these. I taught her to read by just reading with a finger under. Can help mummy read the sign, or let's read this recipe, or whatever. Real life reading. And in school, they had this thing called Biff, Chip and Kipper, hundreds of books. Sort of started off cat sat on the mat sort of thing, you know, and built up. And she hated it, and it was boring. And she was a bit more advanced, and they forced her to read every single book. And she brought these books home, and this little girl that loved to read had come and sit on my knee, loved all the actions, all the silly voices. I just started to hate it, and you know, she's never got that back. Anyway, so we going back, we're on home education. This thing's a disaster. It's boring, and I just sacked it off. I just binned it. So we're not doing this anymore. And I decided to take the advice of the other home educators. They tell you what to do, and you're frightened. You think you've got to do this national curriculum thing. And we deschooled. They call it deschooling, and they recommend a month for every year a child's in school, and you just have fun. You bake biscuits, you go to the park, you read the book, depending on what age they are, you know. You just chill. And slowly but surely, so we did that. She got all relaxed, and slowly but surely I started to bring in just some little bits, some little activities. And what you've got to do is, you've got to look at your child, and you've got to really look at them and what they like. Not what the government say that they need to learn, but what are they good at? The government, it seems to focus on what they're bad at, and it's really top heavy on maths and English, which is important, don't get me wrong. And I didn't want that. And I thought, I'm just going to go for this child-led thing. I read into it, taking some advice. What's my kid into? It was really easy for me, actually. Cooking and baking. Well, we do that 3 times a day. Arts and crafts, loved it. She was 7. Let's get the glitter out. And science. Really fascinated with the world around her, insects and human body and how things worked. So this was really easy. And you know what? How these home educators did it before the internet, I don't know. I just admire them so much. Straight onto the internet. Let's find some random science experiments. Let's have some fun. She was really interested in the weather at one point, so we made a weather station. We made just our household items, make a thermometer out of a jar with a straw, some alcohol. You set that off, you set it to boil in a pan, you work out as it starts moving, you can work out where the 100 is. We made all sorts, and things also happened quite naturally as well. So, for example, we used to go to all the parks, PE, in the city, and there was a statue of Prince Albert. Who's he? Prince Albert. Who's he? He was Queen Victoria's husband. You're off. And if you can find out, I discovered that kids love anything to do with gore or trumps or poo or anything. They just love all that, the little ones. So you start talking about the Victorian times and blood and death and guts and gore and poverty. You've caught them, you're on it. And you go into every single museum that you can find. We're making Victoria sponges, we're making gruel, we're going to learn all about the Black Death. I mean, the Great Fire of London. Listen to this. We did the Great Fire of London. I know that's not the Victorian times, but classic example of how you can just incorporate so much learning, so many subjects, if you like, into a topic. So we'd seen something on the television about the Great Fire of London. What's that? Let's go find a video. There's something on YouTube, loads and loads. So we build the Great Fire of London. So we're making 3D shapes. There's your math. She's got to locate this on the internet. She's got to print it off. She's got to make them, create them. Cardboard. We made Pudding Lane. So there's your DT, your design technology. We've got the history already. We're learning about that period. We're going to make some. We're going to put some petrol in there. We're going to do some flower bombs, and we're going to set that thing on fire. And we're going to learn all about fire safety. And we're going to sing London's Burning as well at the same time to just chuck some music in there. And she's just going to love every single minute of that. Things like that, really. Lots of topics, and it merged and merged. We did a whole load on science, absolutely anything I could find. I scoured the internet, paid no attention to age. If I could do it at home, if I could get the resources, we just did it. We did loads of, they call it STEM, really, engineering. So we'd, actually, she got really interested in the rainforest. So we learned about the rainforest, and we made a rope bridge. Failed, totally. We put the car along it and it just totally collapsed. But she learned from that, and worked out how to fix that. We made a rainproof roof activity, she had to build with Lego and then use lots of different roofs to tin foil and straw, and then she put the hose pipe on that and see what worked, and just all sorts of things, all sorts. I had all sorts stashed, I got really into it. Hot sunny day, I had activities for that, so we made a pizza oven. I mean, this thing worked. It's a pizza box with tin foil and it worked. We actually cooked biscuits in this thing. She loved it, and it was just great. It was just great. So it was all based on her activities, and I just scoured the internet looking for things that we could do, and it was fascinating. She went back to school at 14, and she went to a university, UTC, University Technical College, 14 to 16. She chose it. It was science heavy, which is what she wanted to do. And she'd say, Mum, we did an activity today. I remember doing that in home education. So it was really good. So yeah, and the unschooling thing, people often think you're just leaving them to their own devices. People think you have to teach. People think you have to have loads of knowledge. I learned so much. Things that I never knew doing this. At first, I used to sort of do pre-study the night before and try and read up on whatever we might be learning about, whatever activity. And in the end, I just thought, no, she needs to see me, maybe not understanding this. She needs to see me, not be stressed about this, and go, no, I'm going to research and let's Google, let's read. It was fab. It was the best thing I ever did. The best thing I ever did.
It sounds to me like it was a labour of love for you, really. I suppose it was, wasn't it? And of course, the other thing is, and then I did a little bit of commercial training and a bit of training when I was in the army many years ago. And the key always was motivation. I remember doing a course where I was being called Train the Trainers, I think it was, or something like that.
Yeah.
And there was a warrant officer in front of the class, and he was telling young officers how to deal with these kind of things. And he said, you won't ever teach anybody, and it happened to be soldiers, but it could have been kids. It doesn't make any difference. If you don't motivate them to learn, you'll never stuff any information in their head. And they'll
Godfrey nailed it, yeah.
As I did in Latin. And quadratic equations. I could not see the point in it. I stared out of the window at the cricket nets, wishing I was out there playing some cricket. And so I cut myself off from learning. I'm a completely different person now. I can listen to an expert on butterfly collection all the time. If somebody's good at what they do, I can't wait to listen to what they've got to say. But that's because I'm an old man now and I've changed my views. But you have to motivate them. So obviously the motivation was there.
Well, that's the thing, you've nailed it, Godfrey, because if you only focus on what they're interested in, that intrinsic motivations there, they want to know about this stuff, and they don't even realise how much other maths and English, etc., is being incorporated into that. And another thing, I think, because when she went back into school after 7 years of just having a laugh, seriously, making things and cooking and baking. We made poo, you know, she wanted to learn about the digestive, so we made poo. I mean, it was hilarious, you know, and she laughed and learned so much. But the thing is, because she spent 7 years just having fun, and my understanding is that every time a person learns something, there's connections going on in the brain. You know, the brains are expanding. She didn't probably memorize half of it. She won't remember probably learning anything really. But what happened was she had 7 years of fun, of following her interests, of being able to research herself, of being bored sometimes. And when she went back to school, she wasn't dumbed down. She hadn't spent the last 7 years of having this, like I say, quadratic equations. Why? Why does somebody want to be a hairdresser or a plasterer or a dancer or a mute? Why do they need to know that? But she hadn't had 7 years of this being dumbed down, forced to learn all this maybe irrelevant stuff that she didn't quite understand yet. She wasn't ready for. She was bored. She was looking out at like you said, the tennis nets, you know, and then having to regurgitate it test after test after test for 7 years, forgetting if you don't use it, you lose it, forgetting half of it, stressed out, test. She was motivated. You know, you have to write these annual reports for the council, and I used to give my philosophy, and my philosophy was, and I can't quite remember who said it. It was education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And I tried to light her fire, totally following her interests. Totally. No forced maths, reading, writing, nothing. If she wasn't interested, if it wasn't working out anything I'd planned or any ideas I'd got, I just sacked it. I'm not going to push this. So when she went back to college, and the reason she wanted to go to school as well at 14 is because she wanted to go. You see, her aim at the moment, she wants to be a pathologist. How do we get to be? She said, I want to be a pathologist, but how do we get there? I have to get these GCSEs. I have to get these A levels. I have to get this degree. I have to get on the scientist training program, blah, blah, etc. So she knew that she had to go back to school. Well, not necessarily. She could have stayed at home for me, but she found this college. It was a STEM college, science, technology, engineering, maths. She applied and got in. Not selective. She just pulled these names out of her hat. And off she went, totally motivated, ready to learn. And you know, she was really looking forward to going into school for the social thing, I suppose. She was looking forward to meeting a load of other kids. And she was really disappointed. She said they just mess about, they're wasting their time, they were immature. She was really disappointed, you know, and quite selective in who she ended up hanging about, which I admired because she's not sheep. And I think she'd rather be alone than just have friends for the sake of it, you know. I think school can do a lot of damage, you know, talking about that social thing, Godfrey, maybe going off on a bit of a tangent. You know, there was a kid in my class at school, he maybe had some sort of special needs, I don't know. He had a speech impediment and could tell he had some difficulties. He was very different. He didn't have one friend for 5 years, not one. Was picked on. The kid that had acne was picked on. The kid that wore glasses, the kid that was fat, the kid that was a bit odd, a bit different, you know? And all kids can see that, can't they? They can see that. They can see the consequences of being different. And I think maybe subconsciously kids think dog eat dog, I've just got to survive this, I've got to fit in. And maybe that's why we saw what we saw with all the COVID debacle, you know, and everything, that whole life, everybody seems to be just doing as they're told, even if they know it's wrong or crap. Going along with this nonsense, and I think schools have got a lot to do with that. Whereas the home ed kids, I mean, you think about it, we've only had mass compulsory education, really, haven't we? What, 100, maybe 30, 40 years? I can't quite remember. What did people do before that? How did kids learn how to socialise before? You know, I mean, it sort of indoctrinated us all that school is the only place that kids can learn how to be social. This is just nonsense, really. And my kid mixed with life still goes on. I've still got to go to the bank. I've still got to have the insurance chap over to do the quotes, you know. I've still got to have the builder over. I've still got to go to the shops and the post office, and all these things still have to happen. And she's there watching it. And she's interacting with all these people. I mean, you take a kid to a museum when all the other children are at school. The staff there, they just love this. They've got this one-on-one. They can just tell them everything they know. They get this one-on-one personalised education. Whenever you go to the museums, it's fantastic. But yeah, I've lost where I was. What was I talking about?
Let me cut in with a question, because this is absolutely fascinating. Let me tell you a little anecdote there myself. I was in, believe it or not, Arizona several years ago, and we were in the middle of a sort of a little bit of desert stuff, on the end. There was a sort of bus shelter to keep the sun off and all that kind of thing. And there wasn't enough there were just two kids in there. There were two kids sitting on the bench, and my wife and I were out in the hot sun, and one of the children came over and offered us the seat in the shade.
Oh,
Was
nice.
totally articulate, looked us in the eye,
Yeah.
and wasn't the normal sort of shifty sort of young teenager that you get. It was
Sure.
totally open and totally confident, but it's extremely polite.
Yeah.
And very quickly, Mum turned up in her car to pick them up, and we got chatting, and they were homeschooled.
Yeah.
And I knew from that, I knew immediately they were different from the ordinary American
Yeah.
kid you see of 13, 12 or 13,
Very
because they were
different.
so confident, but not in a nasty way or
No.
arrogant way, but in a very nice way. And I tell you the same thing when I was a director of an investment bank years ago. You could tell those days, and it's the same today. The child who's been at a public school is the same. They look you in the eye, they're respectful, and they're confident. And I could tell, I still can, within 15 minutes, within 15 seconds, whether that child was at a public school or home educated, because it's not
Yeah.
about the grades or the exams or anything like that. It's nothing like that. It's the sheer confidence that they have. And I
Yes.
watched a prep school. I was with a judge when I was in office. I was judging a children's presentation. It was a bit like that program with Alan Sugar or something on the TV. I never watched it myself, but they got some program going for them. And I watched, funnily enough, I think it was a team of 17-year-olds from the sixth form in Hull. It was a Hull school, or the prep school was up in North Yorkshire. And I watched the prep school children, of course, who were 12 or 13, wipe the floor with the sixth formers from a state school in Hull. They were just, not because the kids weren't any good. It was just that the prep school kids were so much better. They were so articulate. They were so confident. And the whole difference was there.
Godfrey, I'm convinced it's on purpose. They're trying to dumb these kids down. It doesn't make sense how they're supposed to learn this stuff. You talk about quadratic equations. It's funny, I really vividly remember doing that in school. And the teacher taught us how to do the sum on the board. And then he gave us a page of sums. And I got 100%. I still to this day do not know what is the purpose of a bloody quadratic equation. I don't know. They dumb them down, they make them learn a load of stuff, and it's all memory rote. It's just boring. How many kids do you know? And you're back at school then, holidays finished, and this is, human beings are born to learn. It's what we are. Look around you, look what we've created. Human beings, we can't help it. It's what we do from the minute we're born. Yet they manage to create a lot of kids that hate school, this amazing place apparently where you're going to learn all these things. How come? I think it's about a fifth of the population are functionally illiterate. How can you go to school full-time, compulsory, for what, a minimum of 11 years, and come out of that functionally illiterate? This is not normal. This is appalling. And I don't mean learning about the subordinate clause. This is for, I mean, just been able to get through life it's appalling. And a third of kids have to fail every year. That's the marking system. A third of 16-year-olds have got to fail. I was one of them. You're a failure, you got a D. I'm not a bloody failure. I've never struggled with maths in my life. The problem is you were trying to make me, who wasn't a maths person, I was never going to be an engineer or a chemist, or not really need. You've just dumbed me down, forced me to try and learn this stuff that maybe is not my thing. And that's okay. What's that other saying? I think it's an Einstein. Everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will grow up thinking it's stupid. And that's exactly what the national curriculum does. It forces kids to learn this narrow stuff, whether they're ready to learn it or not. Remember, you could have a kid who turns 3 in the August starting school, and their classmate has just turned 4 in September. This is massive. But the national curriculum marches on, whether they've learned it, whether they've understood it, whether it's made any sense, whether they can link it to real life. They're bored, it dumbs them down. By the time they get to 14, God, no wonder, no wonder they're messing about in school. No wonder they're not taking it seriously. They're not teaching them any skills.
How did you get on with, I find it impossible to believe that you didn't get people from the state or the council or some organization wanted to poke their nose in. How did you deal with all that? Because I'm getting feedback that that's going to get more difficult in the future.
It's dreadful, Godfrey, it's dreadful. Now, back when I did it, remember, this is a long time ago now. I finished doing it 4 years ago with her. And back then, you could pretty much keep them out. The expectation was to write an annual report detailing they were particularly keen. You see, the guidance changed, the statutory guidance changed halfway through mine. There was more of a focus on maths, English and social. They were really, so you had to really cover that and explain how you were educating your child in those areas, and you also had to document how they'd improved. So this is really difficult, it used to take me ages, and I used to keep scrapbooks, and I've got tons of photos to remind me. And you would have to, like I said, link up. Well, they learned about the shapes doing Pudding Lane, for example, or, I mean, I'll give you an example. So she was really interested in human biology, as you know, and she wanted to learn about blood. So amongst other activities, she wanted to learn about blood groups. What's all that mean, Mum? So I said, I'll tell you what, we'll get on the home ed groups and we'll ask people for the blood groups and we'll learn about blood groups. Over 800 families came forward and gave us their blood groups. So it's like, wow, we've got all this data. This is a massive learning event now. I know this. That's another thing you do when you're a home educator. You become, I can use this. I can chuck something in here that I wanted to know about. So straight away, we've got 800 pieces of data. And we're going to teach, I'm going to teach you tally. Let's learn how to do a tally, 1, 2, 3, 4 cross. So I learned that sort of condenses it, makes it a lot easier. She's fascinated. So should we put it in a bar chart? What's that? I'll show you. I never taught or told, I showed. And she might, I don't know, encourage you to finish it off. And that was pretty much with everything. I modelled and showed how to do it. And I thought, I'm going to push this and see if I can get her to do a pie chart, which is quite complex calculations, really. Anyway, she did it. She was fascinating. She did this fabulous pie chart. But you know what? This is the beauty of home education. You can be doing one thing and it'll lead on to a load of other things. So the bar chart showed quite clearly the different blood groups. You could see the differences in the different blood groups in this 800 sample. But the pie chart was they all looked reasonably similar. I thought, I can teach her something here. We can show her something. And I thought, I'm going to teach her how they can fiddle data. They will show you them if they want you to think that everybody's got the similar blood groups, there's the same amount of people with the same blood group, they're going to show you the pie chart. And she was absolutely fascinated with this. And this is an opportunity to teach her that you don't take things at face value. Go look at the original numbers, I think that's fabulous learning. Another example as well, we were doing some arts and crafts at the table, our house that was right on the street. So we were sat at the table in the front window, whatever, I can't remember doing whatever. And a car pulled up opposite. And a couple of people got out in stab-proof vests with a clipboard, and they proceeded to put a clamp on the neighbour's car. Obviously, we know they've not paid their bills or something's happened. It's upsetting, really, isn't it? But this has happened to them. Anyway, so she was like, what are they doing? What is going on? And there was an argument happened, and I thought, this is great, another learning opportunity. I'm going to teach her something now. So I'm teaching her all about, I'm explaining that they've maybe not paid their bills, maybe something's terrible's happened, they haven't planned for that, they haven't got savings, they haven't paid their bill, and now they're going to come and remove that car. She was, oh, this can happen, really? I've got the bank statements out. I've got my husband's wage slips out. We're talking about budgeting. I'm showing her all the bills. This is how much is left. We're going to divvy that up. We're going to put that in the Christmas pot. We're going to put that in the birthday pot. We're saving up for an holiday next year. Let's put that in there, etc. Do you know how much they learned from that? Looking at tax, she was horrified. It's just leads on and on and on and on, you know.
The
All
the
natural learning.
that's something, of course, that I was pushing for when I was in office, to actually cover that in schools, because they send the children go right through school, never mind what else they don't learn or what they learn, which is actually wrong.
Yes.
There should be, years and years and years ago, my sisters did domestic science, they used to call it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that they need to do is actually home finance. Is how does it work? How does a mortgage work? How does everything work?
Yes.
What's money? What is your bank? How does banking work? And none of
Yeah.
it. I still do podcasts and stuff on this today.
I know.
It isn't difficult. It isn't difficult. Because some of it's really quite straightforward, but the number of people, I did a small book. I wrote a small book on the magic of banking, how banking works, and it is magic because it's fraudulent.
Yeah.
And I got a letter. It was sold quite well, and I got an email from a guy on Wall Street, an American on Wall Street, and he said, "I'm 32. I've been working on Wall Street for since I left university. So I learned more from your small book than I ever learned anywhere else," because nobody actually told him that or
No.
explained that. The basics of these things, and it's
And this
very
is
useful.
great.
And it's going to become more useful in the future
Yeah.
because of how things are going. Can I ask you just because we can't go on too long because we don't want to make it too long a piece, but we can always come back another day, of course. Tell me about the social. They're obviously very keen on this sort of socialized thing,
Yeah.
and I speak to now. I've always taken the view. I was involved in sponsorship of rugby football and stuff like that through my business career as well. We have mini rugby, junior rugby, mini cricket, junior cricket in the town. We live in a little village in the town. There's loads of activity if you want it, or there's dance classes in the town and stuff like that. There's loads of stuff. But one of the things people are frightened of, who are contemplating this, is that somehow they won't have any access to sport or dance or music, and yet it's all in the local town. Every local town has got all this, so they can go, and of course that makes friends as well.
To meet the friends, that's
What was
right.
your experience on that,
Do you
Nicola?
know what's the number one question when people find out you're a home educator? Number one question. It goes back to people thinking that you need to go to school to socialise. I mean, what is socialisation? It's mixing with others. School does fulfil that, I suppose, in a way, although you're only mixing with 30 other kids the same age as you, probably similar background to you. And socialization is learning how to mix with others. You're going to behave differently at your grandma's house than you are at your mate's 21st sort of thing, And how do they learn that in school? Who's teaching them these skills? Is it one of the other kids that are also learning, or is it the stressed out teacher at the front? Nobody's teaching them these skills. And that's why, God, I could really go off on one. Another thing my daughter noticed when she went back into school is how thoughtless they are. Just thoughtless. Totally other people, no consideration for anybody else. She was really shocked because I brought her up to try and think of others. You don't be putting on people. You need to be polite and kind and nice and don't put on people. And she's horrified, actually. She was horrified. But yeah, social, you have to support them with that because all the kids are in school and the home educators are sort of scarred, if you like. You do have to support them. And this is where your social media comes in, particularly when we moved from West Yorkshire over to East Yorkshire. Straight onto Facebook, joined the local home ed group. Hi, new to the area. I've got an XYZ child. She's into this. Anybody want to do a meet, And you would have to support them on that. You would go originally, and a lot of family mothers would come forward. Yeah, I've got a child same age. They're into this, and you'd meet. You'd go meet. You might go bowling or whatever they're into. And you'd go meet up. Their mother would be there. You'd be there. And if it worked out, they'd get together usually on, the kids chat via social media now, don't they? They'd get together later. And I did that for her, and she's still really good friends with one of the girls 6 years on, you know. It was one of the reasons actually I allowed her to come out of school, because we did live in quite a working class area, rough and ready, but the kids played out. We lived on a cul-de-sac, dead end street, and there were so many kids from toddler to teens, all playing together. And that persuaded me. I knew that they'd be banging on the door at 3:30. Is she playing? Is she playing? And she'd be out. And they did, and she was, and it was great. And it was a good social as well, you know. You'd have the teenagers, they'd have the toddlers on the hips and playing mum, and they looked out for each other. It was fab. And that did persuade me to do that. But I don't think it would have been necessary. There's so many homemade groups out there. You get on social media now, it's not a problem. It's really not a problem. And like you say, they join clubs. If they're a dancer, they're going to make friends there. If they're into footy, rugby, whatever. It's there.
I sometimes get myself into hot water in this. I have found throughout my life and associated, and I've sponsored sport and prep school sport and university sport, incidentally. Cambridge University, strong association there in the past, not much now. All these things I have found, both socially and professionally, with some noble exceptions, the standard of a state school teacher is very low. They are socially inept. They are not really very well qualified like they would have been in the old days. I mean, I went to a grammar school and every teacher I had was a wartime officer, that's point one,
Yep.
and was a university graduate when they weren't, incidentally, a dime a dozen.
Yes.
And I will also concede that half of them are raving bonkers, but there we are. That was school teachers in the 50s. But this is a problem, and I don't know how children can learn at a state school. For example, give you just a quick idea of this. The state pension scheme for school teachers. They seem to be able to retire at 55 or 60 on an index-linked pension, and it's huge. It's huge. I've got neighbours in the village, and they, the ones with all the brand new cars on the drives are retired school teachers, and they didn't stick it out till 63 or 65. They went at 55, 56 or 57 and played the stressed card. I'm very stressed, like nobody else is stressed in their professions. Oh, no, I'm very stressed. And they also didn't know how much the pension cost. They didn't know how much £50,000 a year, which is a kind of screw they're on, index linked cost if you wanted to buy it from a big insurance company. And when I explained to them it was 2 million, and it is if you do your homework on it, they said, they were trying to pretend, I paid into my pension fund. A lot of people think we don't. I put in £200 a month to my pension. I said, it costs £2 million to buy what you've got. Did you put that in or anywhere close? They don't get it. And then
you wonder why they go along with it all.
Because, I mean,
they go along with everything. They go along with the nonsense.
They're away all summer. And they actually think they're stressed and they work hard. They want home at 4 o'clock mowing the lawn.
Godfrey, honestly, I'm glad. Do you know, I was upset when she wanted to go back. I was really worried, actually. I thought, what rubbish and nonsense are they going to fill her head with? But that's actually, not everybody can do this. I was lucky, supportive husband, cheap accommodation. We could afford to live on my husband's wage. But yeah, not everybody can do this. And I think if you have got kids in schools, you have to give them the other side of the story. So, for example, if they're telling them black slave trade, African slave trade, white people bad, great. Yeah, it was horrific. Let's talk about the white slave trade as well. I'm going to tell you about that. And you have to sort of mitigate, because I really do think they're harming kids at the moment. I really do. I'm not happy at all. And I did ask them, actually. I did contact a new school and say, what are you planning on telling her? And thankfully, they were quite sensible about a lot of things.
Well, that's good. That's good, because it always worries me. You see, they're getting up. Won't go off on this one because it's easy to go down the rabbit.
I could go.
But you can some of this, net zero. We've got a minister. We have a minister for energy who is a moron.
Oh
A
my God.
moron.
Redhead. Seriously, Godfrey, redhead. And it's still been rammed, honestly, even though she's just literally doing science, they're still chucking it in there. It really winds me up.
Yeah.
How they've lied to these children. It's
I
not
don't
right.
think
It's not right.
they don't even, they're not even lying. They don't even know that it's bullshit. They don't
Well,
even
this is the
know it's
problem.
bullshit.
This is the problem. And they've gone through university, they've been indoctrinated. It's just the
Yeah.
whole, I mean, God, I don't know how they're going to sort this out. I don't know how they're going to sort this out. Don't get me
I
started. I could really go. I've read your book anyway. I've learned a lot about the money system.
oh
I have
good.
learned a lot. I've read a couple of your books, the vaccine one.
Hmm.
I was looking at, but I've learned a lot that I didn't know, which I've told my daughter all about. She's about to go on to university, and I am furious about these student loans and debt, and which is why I'm working in a supermarket at the night in the night to support her and try and reduce this damn debt. I'm so cross about it. And I think, this so many, like you say, you call them Mickey Mouse degrees. They need to just strip this back. For God's sake, strip it back. And only kids that need to, if you need to have a degree, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to have to get a degree, an engineer, you need a degree. There's certain jobs you do have to go and do that further training. But I'm convinced they're setting these kids up with all this debt just to ruin their damn lives and make them keep doing the jobs. And, these teachers have got student loans to pay and a mortgage, a pension to look forward to. It's terrible. It's terrible. And I'm really glad and that she was out of it and that she's the kid that she is, well, the young lady that she is now, mature and, and,
So
and
I'm
excellent.
absolutely delighted that it's been
She's
so. When did she
lovely.
go? Next term, is it? When does she actually go to York?
September.
September, so it's
September.
really imminent then. Look,
But
I'm
she's
going to wind it
going.
up here, Nicola, because I think we've had a really good chat, a very fruitful
Yeah.
chat, and we can get together again.
Yeah.
Perhaps when she's had a year at university, maybe this time next year,
See how she is.
or a bit later. I'll be very interested to see how she fares out at university and what she likes and what she doesn't like and how it was, especially reading a proper science subject. She's not
Mm.
reading Mickey Mouse. She's not reading Basket
No.
Week or whatever it is.
To- Honest to
It's
God,
top
she's,
stuff.
yeah. To say, to say that she was radically unschooled, actually, and I got a lot of stick as well from family and friends. She got top marks in her GCSEs, and there is credit to the college. Obviously, they did the whole thing, but people panic if they don't follow the curriculum, they're going to miss something, and they won't pass these GCSEs. The GCSE is a standalone course. As long as you've got a reasonable level of numeracy and literacy, you can start that course afresh. Biology day one, the cell. Um, so people shouldn't try not to panic. And that it's all that intrinsic, they want it. What do they? I want to be a pathologist. What do I need to do? It's there. That motivation, like you were saying earlier, is there because they've been allowed to follow their interests. And she did have to catch up a bit when she went back to school, I'll not lie. Um, but it was really rapid and she got nines and eights in her GCSEs, so it wasn't too much. So yeah, I just really recommend it. If you can do it,
Well, Nicola,
go for it.
thanks again. Look, everybody viewing this shows that it can be done. Nicola
Mhm.
can do it, but it does, as will have come across to you, it would have come that the sort of commitment that is needed.
Yes.
But if
You
you've got the commitment, you can do it, everybody. You
nobody
can do it if
nobody
you're
will
committed.
Godfrey, nobody will love your child like you, like the parent. Nobody will care what happens to your kid. Certainly not a teacher, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but nobody will love or care about your child more than you, mum or dad. And if you can really look at your kid and look at what they're into, and you can facilitate, not teach, facilitate. Take them to the museum, find the YouTube videos, get the book, do the activity, Google the science experiment, Google the arts and crafts, bake the buns, read the books, just enjoy. And it's not easy. We did have to go without. We only had in the 16 years, we only had 4 holidays, a caravan sort of thing as well. I haven't had a bottle of perfume since I got married. I don't get my nails done. And, I'm not going to lie, it was a bit sometimes, but worth it. Worth it. So if you can do it, if you can afford to do it, go for it. Work opposite shifts.
As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research based. And I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I'll automatically share it with you. So, surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.